Today is Monday, June 1st, 2015, and we are here today to interview Sister Brigid Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Our first question is, we would like to know about your journey of faith. What led you to the religious life?
Well, I went to Mercy High School, and it was wonderful getting to know the sisters there. There were, of course, this is many years ago, back in the 50s, and there were many sisters on the faculty. And I was so impressed with them. I would see them gathered together and laughing. They were good teachers. I'd hear them in the cafeteria. The sisters' dining room was just adjacent to the cafeteria. I could hear them laughing in there. I'd go in the chapel and see them praying silently, one by one, but then I'd see them as a group. And it was just very, very impressive. I was young, I was 14, I was a freshman. And then my homeroom teacher, one day, which was pretty typical, they gave a talk on vocations very often in March. And I remember I was very fond of that particular sister. She taught science and was a good teacher. And she said to us, "What would you do if Jesus appeared to you and said, 'Will you come and follow me?'" And as a 14-year-old, I thought, of course I would say yes. And I really felt that call from then on. Never changed my mind, so that was my call.
Wow. So why did you choose the Sisters of Mercy as opposed to another order?
Well, they were the ones I got to know in high school. I did have another community of sisters in grade school, but I didn't see them much after school or outside of a classroom setting. At Mercy, I was very involved in sports, so I was after school a lot, both in music and sports, so I got to know the sisters much better. And maybe things loosened up a little bit. Anyway, I saw much more of the human side of them, so that's where I felt attracted.
What did you study as you were going through your training?
Well, my major was education and mathematics. So I got my bachelor's in math, and then came to U of D and got my master's in the teaching of math. And then after that, the community asked me to teach liturgy to the novices, to young women entering the community. Liturgy is a study of the ritual of the Catholic Church, the sacraments. So I said, well, I'll be happy to teach it if I knew something. So maybe it would be good if I went and learned something first. So then I got a master's in liturgical studies, and things went on from there.
Wow. So what was your role at Mercy College?
Well, when I was finishing my degree in liturgical studies, Sister Agnes Mary was president of Mercy College. She was also a classmate and a good friend. But she asked if I would come to Mercy as a liturgist. And I did, and became part of the campus ministry, and then eventually director of campus ministry, eventually a one-person team, actually. I remember by that time Sister Maureen Fay was president, and we were downsizing some staff, and she asked if I could possibly manage on my own. I did have 5 priests who came in and helped with the sacramental ministry. But I said to her, well, I could maybe do it on my own if you gave me a computer to work with. This was the 80s, early 80s. So I became one of the first, yes. So I started using my Macintosh, and I've never stopped. I'm Windows illiterate.
You kind of answered this question, but maybe you could go into more depth. Just tell us about your time at Mercy College of Detroit. How did you impact the students? How do you feel you impacted the students?
Well, I was in campus ministry, so my main focus was centered around the spiritual dimension of reaching out to students. And some of my favorite times, favorite memories were, we had a retreat every fall and every spring. And I always tried to find a place near the water. and we called them the Come to the Water retreats. And the age range, we would have 25 to 30 students, ranging in age from 18 to 70 probably. Many of them were older students, some staff and faculty as well, but some older students from the city who really were raising families, going to school, working, as they still do today.
Yes.
I have great admiration for them. But for them, it was like a vacation. So to find a nice, peaceful place with water where they could just spend some time quietly was really, I think, an attraction for them. We had wonderful retreats. We'd have a speaker come in. We'd share prayer. We laughed together. We cooked and ate our meals together. Those were wonderful.
Was this a one-day retreat?
It was a weekend retreat.
It was a weekend.
From Friday evening to Sunday noon.
What water?
Well, we went different places. We went to, the iGEM sisters had a place at Crofton in Canada. We were able to go there several times. Once, then we went out to the Irish Hills. The Oblates of St. Francis priests have, I think they still have at St. Francis Camp du Sales, maybe. And we went there several times. I was able to get a place, CYO or something like that, up on Port Huron. So we always found a lake. We found some water and enjoyed it.
Did you have time where they could go swimming?
It was
Did you build in
usually,
time?
No, time-wise
cold?
of the year it was
Oh,
cold.
it's
We
too
usually
cold.
went in October and in March.
The water can be so calming, so
Oh, it
relaxing.
really can. Yes.
You've already given us a lot of information, but do you have a favorite story or a favorite memory from your time at the college?
Well, I think in addition to those Come to the Water retreats, favorite memories would include once a month the faculty and staff got together for just camaraderie, Friday afternoons, and we gathered in what was the campus ministry house. It had been the chaplain's house at one time. And then for a while, for a few years, it was the campus ministry house. So it was a very homey setting. And because we were a smaller college, we really got to know so many more faculty and staff better. It was like family. It was wonderful. And I really missed those Friday afternoon gatherings. We had a good time. Also remember one time we had it was a Christmas, we always had a Christmas liturgy on December 8th, followed by this wonderful dinner that all faculty and staff were invited with their families. And we gathered for that, and that was always a nice occasion, but I remember this one particular December 8th, when we came out after the dinner. It was quite late, probably about 9 o'clock at night, and there had been this huge snowstorm. And we were all helping each other scrape cars and having actually a great time scraping off the snow in the parking lot. That's a good memory. There are many, many good memories of working with students, faculty, and staff.
You sort of answered this because I sort of asked you, but I'm thinking maybe you've got another example. I love your examples. As a Sister of Mercy, what impact did your work have on the students? Can you think of something that maybe wasn't Retreat by the Water?
Well, I also, this is related academically as well, but I taught a number of independent studies on sacraments to, over the years actually, to many students and a few faculty and staff. And I would meet with them like once a week. I'd give them books to read and then we'd talk about them. And that led to some absolutely wonderful conversations. They had great questions. They had doubts, they had fears, they had anger, all kinds of emotions. And it was just a wonderful time of faith sharing and getting to know them better, and they're getting to know me. So all of these seem to be sort of related, but they really were special times. That was a real gift. To be able to share faith with someone is a wonderful gift.
Yes, it is. very much so. Which segues very well into our next question. How has your ministry changed over the years in the city of Detroit, in the state of Michigan, and with the Sisters of Mercy?
Well, in particular, I changed from, at the time we consolidated at Mercy College with U of D, I decided I had always enjoyed teaching math. I used to teach math at Mercy during the summer in our college prep program. And that sort of reminded me how much I enjoyed teaching math. So it just seemed like a good time to move back to that. So I started teaching math and tutoring math here in our learning center on the Outer Drive campus initially, and then here on the McNichols campus. So that was quite a change in my ministry, but a change that I loved. The tutoring also led to sharing with students. I got to know them better, they got to know me better, and that one-on-one opens up a bit of trust, where again someone can share more easily, more of what's going on in their life, which is very helpful to a teacher. If you know some of the struggles they're going through, you can say, no wonder you have trouble with math. So that was very, very helpful, and a big change in my ministry, and I'm still doing it actually. Now I'm volunteering tutoring in the Learning Center as they need me here and there. In the Sisters of Mercy, I don't know that, certainly with the forming of the West Midwest, and we're getting to know each other on a broader scale. My primary work within the Sisters of Mercy is in liturgy and music. I have been sort of the unofficial liturgist and musician for the sisters for our big celebrations for 40 years, really.
What instrument do you play?
Well, I don't play. I can play a little bit the piano. Mostly I get choirs together for special occasions. We have some wonderful musicians that I'm able to call on, and they're like family. They love coming, and we love having them come. I direct the music, the musicians, and congregational singing. And I sing myself. I love to sing. And so I think I'm known probably primarily for my ministry of music within the community.
How do you live out the mission of the Sisters of Mercy?
Well, I think the mission of UD Mercy ties in so closely with the mission of the Sisters of Mercy. The fact that this is an urban university, Mercy College very early on changed the name to Mercy College of Detroit, and that was done very purposely. It was back in the 60s when, initially, of course, when Mercy College was built and Mercy High School was on the same property, by the early 60s, Mercy College needed more room. So something had to move, either the high school or the college. And it was determined by leadership. I wasn't in on that decision. I was still pretty young at the time. But the decision was made to move the high school to Farmington and the headquarters of the community to Farmington. And Mercy College took over the entire property, the 40 acres. And it was for the purpose of serving the people of Detroit. And primarily, in our direction statement for the community, it's to serve through education, but primarily women and children. And that's been a focus of the community. Now we're very happy to teach young men and older men as well here at the university. But our primary focus is to work for educating women, and especially those who don't have some of the opportunities that others have. So being in the city is important. I work with a lot of students who live in the city, come from very challenged backgrounds, don't have a lot of extra help. And so that's been a real privilege to try to help them, and I think I have been able to help some of them. get past their fear or their, in some cases, hatred of math. Some of them really don't like math. I should say many don't like math. So I try to help them over that. I also try to remind them, especially older students, how much they know that I don't know. Some of them will say, you are just brilliant, you know math. And I think, well, I'm not brilliant, but I do know math. And I try to remind them all the things that they do, that they've raised families. They can cook, they can do all these things. They have a job that they do well. And they should be proud of that. And if they have trouble with algebra, that's okay. I haven't raised a family as they have. And especially, I haven't, when I went to college, that's what I did. I went to college. I didn't have a job. I wasn't raising children. I wasn't doing all of this other stuff, trying to pay off a home or pay bills. I just studied and I passed. I got through.
How do they react to that?
I think they appreciate it. It's like recognizing, yes, you're right, I do have gifts, and we just have different gifts. I think it's most positively.
Since the consolidation with the University of Detroit, do you still feel that the education of women and young girls, you're still able to do that? Do you feel that that legacy that is still living on here?
Oh, I do. Certainly here at the university, and also in the other ministries that we're involved in. I'm tutoring now also at Mercy High School, and of course that's a very highly regarded high school. Yeah, tuition is very high, but we do our best as a community to give as many scholarships and as much scholarship aid as we can. So we really tried hard to have a diversity of students at the high school and to help them. And then we have Mercy Education Project, which many of our sisters are volunteers there, and that's down in southwest Detroit, in Corktown. And they are doing a wonderful job with the after-school tutoring program for girls and for women to help them get their GEDs. And again, they're all ages, but they tend to be, for the most part, I think, young mothers who didn't finish high school. And then they go on and help them get into college and find jobs. And then my sister, of course, Kenise, was so involved in getting Detroit Coastal Way High School started. And that's for low-income families. It is for co-ed, but certainly many young women take advantage of that. And Kenise was wonderful writing grants for Detroit Coastal Way and for Mercy Education Project as well.
You've been kind of telling us this, but, it'd be nice to hear it again. What are you doing now? How have you made the transition from academia?
Basically, I don't get a paycheck.
You're doing the same thing?
Anymore. I'm not doing quite as much, but I am still tutoring, volunteer tutoring in the Learning Center. I'm volunteering at Mercy High School a couple days a week, which I wasn't doing before. And I also, there's a couple of my grandnieces and nephews who have some challenges, and I tutor them once a week, one morning a week. So I plan to tutor as long as I can.
That must be special, tutoring your grandnieces and nephews.
It really is, yes. And they're darling kids, and I love doing it.
This wasn't part of our original interview, but given the recent passing of Sister Kenise, your biological sister, is there a favorite story or a memory of her you would like to share with us?
Well, actually, one is a very recent memory. I have, as we gathered pictures and things to show at the wake service, one of the sisters had a clip of Kenise and the sister she's been living with for several years. And they're gathered around the dining room table at St. Charles Parish in Detroit, very, very poor section of the city. And they celebrate Eucharist there on Wednesday mornings. Because it's a small group, they gather around the dining room table and then have breakfast together. And one of the Kenise and Mary Ellen Howard, the sister she's been living with, have been very involved with the water issue in Detroit and shutting off of water. And someone in the group, actually the mother of one of our alums who's still working in the Learning Center, Molly Redigan's mother, wrote lyrics to some of the Motown songs. So they're calling this the Flowtown group.
Yeah.
And I have a little clip of them singing, "Stop turning the water off," and then it goes on. It's really delightful. And because Kenise is laughing, this was like 3 weeks before she died. And so it's a wonderful recent memory, but I love watching it because she's laughing and having fun, which she did right up to just a few days before she died. She's been very active in her retirement years.
Very special memory.
Yes.
Our last question is there anything that we haven't discussed that you would like to tell us? What have we missed?
Oh, well, you had good questions. I actually had kind of fun thinking about them. But maybe just to say what a privilege it is to work with. The staff in the Learning Center are wonderful people. Getting to know the Jesuits better has been wonderful. We really consider them our brothers, and we call us sisters, and sisters with a small s. That's been a real wonderful part of this whole journey with the consolidation. I think we certainly share the same desire to help people improve their lives through education. It's so important, and particularly important for people who have other challenges in their lives. It's been a privilege to teach students of such diverse backgrounds and cultures, and to have them share their lives with me, and to get to know you folks. You're wonderful as well. So I've had a blessed life. It's been a wonderful 60-some years as a Sister of Mercy.
Wow.
Very, very well.
Congratulations. Yes. So do you see the consolidation then as in more positive light than a negative light?
I do. It's difficult to know. Some things I miss, the smallness, the community, the smaller gathering of faculty and staff. I miss our property, our 40 acres. That was really where I entered the community and went to high school. And it was a beautiful campus. So I miss that. But this is a beautiful campus as well. I think it's a good thing. I think we're serving a lot of students. As far as I know, and you don't know what would have happened if we could have made it, either UFD or
either institution.
Yeah. So hopefully it is good. I think it is good for the city.
Anything else?
Not that I can think of.
It's been great. It's been great.
I have to ask you, I remember the computers back in the late 80s.
Yes.
In fact, we got our first one in like 1989.
Yes.
I remember flipping the switch and up comes that C prompt, and my husband and I are like, okay, now what?
Yes.
So are you self-taught, or did you take a class?
Well, at Mercy, one of our faculty members, I think he was in education, he started teaching all of the secretaries. He offered free classes in the summer, and it was maybe like a 1-week workshop. And it was on the early Macintosh computers. So they were not all that different, I don't think, from what became the Windows. But I took one of those classes, and I loved it right away. And I was always a good typist, and I enjoyed typing. And so I had actually typed dissertations for several people who were getting their PhD, or major papers for people working on their masters. So and at the time I was living with a friend of mine, Sister Dolores Novatka, who got her PhD. And I typed all of her papers, and then I typed all of her tests that she gave. She taught psychology at Mercy, and then at UD Mercy. So to not have to go to use, my electric typewriter and my carbon paper, that you'd have to start over. So working on the computer was just wonderful. I loved it, and I've loved it ever since. And now what I enjoy is looking for educational tools to teach. And so I have fallen in love with the iPad. My iPad. Because I was reading articles where the iPad, because it uses all the senses, it's so visual. And of course there's sound and touch and movement, reading, and because it uses all the senses, I guess the sense of smell isn't there yet, but
Or taste.
Taste. Oh yeah. I don't taste it very often. But it was saying that it was very helpful to parents working who had autistic children because of the use of different senses. And my niece's 2 children are not autistic, but they do have some challenges. So I was particularly interested in ways of helping them to learn math. And so I have found some marvelous, marvelous programs. One I'm using now, it's called IXL. I have no idea what that stands for, but it's actually the core content in math and language arts for grades K through 12. And through 12 actually means pre-calc. So
Is that through the state of Michigan?
it's,
Through
I
now?
don't know that
Michigan
it's just,
Electronic Library?
it could very well be.
Yeah.
It's an
Pretty sure
app,
it's there.
it's $80 a year, but it's unlimited use. And I use it with many different students. I use it with students of all ages, and they love it, and all of them seem to love it. Probably because it's novel, it's new. But I have also found another app that I'm using. This is free advertising, I guess. It's called Dragon Box, and it teaches algebra without numbers to start off. And I use that again with all ages. And the first starts off with just little pictures, and the screen is divided into 2 sides. And if you put a picture on this side, you have to put the same picture over here. You can bring up a picture beside it, and that of course stands for multiplication. Bring up the same picture over here. You can bring up a picture under it, and then they will cancel each other out. So it's really quite interesting. That was like a $2 app, I think, but maybe $3. But again, forever you have it once you buy it. So I have really enjoyed using and experimenting with those different apps for teaching math. What was your question? Forget.
Oh, we had just started about. I was asking about your computer.
Oh, how I got
training
into
and
the computer. Yes.
how you first
So
got involved
basically,
with
I
that.
am self-taught because, and again, this is free advertising for Macintosh. It's just so user-friendly that I taught myself almost everything. I've never had a virus. I never have to go. I shouldn't say never, but it's been very rare that I've had to go to someone for help. The most help I've needed is to go to our technicians here when I have to change my password, and for some reason I can receive email at home or through my UDM email, but I can't seem to respond. I can't reply. So I have to go, and they keep showing me how to do it, but that one I just can't seem to get into my head. So, but other than that, I'm pretty self-taught.
So you said you have nieces, so how large of a family did you come from?
There were 4 of us. My brother was the oldest. He was in the Jesuits for 5 years and then decided that marriage was more of his calling. Mm-hmm. So he left, and he and his wife had 6 kids.
Wow.
And they're all married. A couple of them don't have children. my sister Pat went to Mercy and got her degree in nursing, and then nurse anesthesiologist. She had 2 children, and her son, unfortunately, Christopher, died a couple of years ago. But her daughter, Mary Jo, got her degree. She was in the first graduating class after consolidation.
Oh.
So she had her choice of what she wanted on the degree.
U of D or UD Mercy?
She did UD Mercy, and her degree is in accounting. But she's homeschooling her kids and doing a wonderful job of it, so I don't know. And she's still doing accounting, basically, for her church, a volunteer work.
One of them had mentioned her starting up the Mercy Education Project, and,
Right.
and Krista Del Rey was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And was she instrumental in the Mercy Volunteer Corps as well?
Well,
was that
she wasn't instrumental on a formal basis, but part of what we do is to involve them and invite them to different occasions. And Mary Ellen Howard was director of Cabrini Clinic, and we've had a Mercy Corps volunteer there. And so she got to know them, and then because Kenise lived with Mary Ellen, they invited them to all kinds of things. They were both very social-minded. So Mary Ellen had connections, still has connections to many people. And she would get tickets to concerts and tickets to all kinds of things. So Kenise got to know them very well. And they got to know Kenise, so many of them felt very close to her. And we have had several of our Mercy Corps volunteers who fell in love with Detroit, primarily because the sisters who lived in Detroit made sure they went to places, and they saw the DIA,
And that's what one of the sisters had said that. They
she
said
said
nobody wants to come here,
yeah.
and then they get
Once
here.
they get here, they don't want to
They
leave.
don't want to leave.
That's
She
right.
said there have been several marriages.
Yeah, there have, indeed. And some of their parents did not want them to come to Detroit, again, for the same reason that all you hear is the bad stuff. And then they tell their parents, and their parents come to visit, and they have a whole different
It's a whole
image.
different, right.
Find out, oh, this is a great city. We have some problems, but it's a great city.
One question that I didn't follow up on because the conversation was continuing. What sport did you play?
Oh, goodness, in high school, we didn't have as many choices as they have now at Mercy. But I played everything they offered. I played baseball, I played volleyball, Newcomb. I am still quite short. I never did get very tall. But I was the captain of our freshman basketball team. I was small, but I was fast.
Ah.
And there's a picture in one of the yearbooks showing me shaking hands with the captain of the senior team. And of course, she's at least
6 foot tall
taller
one.
than I.
Yeah.
But I loved playing all of those. My father was a baseball player. He was on a minor league baseball team in Canada, in Windsor. And he was a pitcher. And he was signed with the Detroit Tigers. And just before he was to go to training, he injured his arm. So that ruined his career.
Sure, ruined the career.
But he went to Ferris and got a certificate. I don't think they gave degrees then, or he didn't get one, in pharmacy. And opened his own drugstore, lost it, went bankrupt during the Depression. And fortunately, got a job with Eli Lilly and Company. And so he had a very good job, and he died young. He died at 60. But that left my mother with very good benefits, which was fortunate. But I remember playing baseball as a kid, which was a big thing for us. We didn't have video games and all of that.
Right.
We played outside.
Went outside and played,
They
yes.
kicked the can, and hide and seek. And we also played a lot of baseball, and my dad would be the umpire. And of course, if it was close, if I was coming into home base, he'd call me out. And I was sure it was because he didn't want it to look like favoritism. I was sure I was safe.
You want an instant replay.
Yes.
They're
That's what
doing
we
it now.
needed.
What the heck? Have you continued like to watch maybe the pros? Do you watch the Tigers?
Well, I follow them. I don't watch too much. If I'm with a group, I tend to watch baseball.
They're very frustrating right now to watch
Yes,
anyway.
Yes, a little bit. I love it when we win.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the main sport that I follow is baseball.
It's baseball. Yeah. Did you when you played softball? You played softball at Mercy now,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
high school, as all 4 years.
I think so. Well, we only had intramural sports when I was there.
So you didn't play other. You didn't play other schools?
The only other school we played was Mercy College. And I remember Agnes Mary Mansour was a senior in college when I was a senior in high school. And we entered together at the same time.
Oh.
But our basketball teams played each other. And we were so close. I think the Mercy College team won by like one basket or something. Or we won by one basket. I don't remember which. And whoever it was, we really wanted a rematch. I don't think it ever happened.
Now,
it was close.
You're the second one to bring up Sister Mansour. Never worked with her, but boy, I always admired her. And I was really upset when she wasn't allowed to run for office. I remember that. That seemed to take the spirit out of her somehow.
Well,
She died not too long after that, right?
well, she just died a few years ago of cancer.
Oh, I thought it was, okay, I thought it was,
Maybe about 5 years ago.
oh, okay, well then I'm wrong.
But she actually did run for office. She lost in the primary, so she wasn't elected. She ran for, I think it was Director of Human Services or whatever the title was. No, it couldn't have been that.
I thought she was head of Human Services.
She was. You're right.
And
So
then
that
she
was not
ran
elected.
for, I don't know, representative or senator or something.
But she did that first.
She did that
She
first.
ran for something
Okay.
elected office. And several of us went out, door to door, passing out leaflets for her. So she did run, but she was not elected in the primary. And then when Blanchard was elected, and I should remember the woman who was the assistant governor, that's not the right name.
I know who you're talking about.
And second in.
Yeah.
And she was a close friend of Agnes Mary's. And so she suggested to Blanchard that he appoint Agnes Mary as Director of Human Services. And Agnes Mary went to the Archbishop and asked permission to take that job. She didn't ask permission for a lot. She was a very independent woman, very bright, and a strong woman. And I loved her dearly. We all did, except if you crossed her. there were some people who didn't love her, but we loved her. But she asked permission of the Archbishop, and he said, by all means, you have my blessing. So she took the job. And then the Archbishop began getting some letters from Catholics who didn't think she should take the job because under that position was abortion was somehow.
Abortion, sterilization,
Yes.
all of that.
But she was not in taking the job.
She's
to help.
taking it.
She
No.
wanted to help poor people.
Yeah.
So she was, the Archbishop called her back in and said, I want you to resign. She'd only had the job for maybe a month. And she was not about to do that. She had asked permission. She wanted to help the poor. She thought she could. And unfortunately, Rome entered the picture. The Vatican sent a Monsignor, called Agnes Mary, said he wanted to talk to her. Didn't tell her to bring anyone, but she did. She had two close friends. Sister Emily George was also in our class. We had quite a class.
Yeah.
Emily was, of course, also president of the college before Agnes Mary was, and was on our institute leadership team at the time that this happened with Agnes Mary. And so because they were good friends and because Agnes Mary had the sense to know this could be serious, I don't know, he's not telling me what he wants to talk
Yeah,
about.
somebody's coming from Rome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our provincial at the time was Helen Lee Burns, who was also a good friend. So she asked both of them to come with her. They met at our provincialate in Farmington. And he had a document that, and he gave her just a few minutes. He said, you have to decide right now. You either leave the community or you resign your job. So that, was a total shock. They didn't have, but she had at least 2 people from leadership, and they together decided she would leave the community, basically continue to live as a Sister of Mercy. But as far as Rome was concerned, she was no longer a Sister of Mercy. But they immediately made her an associate, a Mercy associate.
Okay.
And she truly did continue living a very, very simple life.
I always thought that broke her heart.
Oh, it
somehow.
did. It did.
It just.
We used to go, the rest of our class, Emily died young in an accident. 2 or 3 more died young. So it was 4 of us, Agnes Mary and Teresa Blackier, Teresa Villeroy, and myself. We used to get together for breakfast about once a month up until Agnes Mary died. And occasionally someone would mention, hey, did you ever think about coming back? Because she could have come back if she had asked permission from Rome. But she just could not do that. But she would tear up every time we talked about it. So I know it was very, very painful. At her funeral service, all of the prayers, we addressed her as our sister, Agnes Mary. And she's buried in our plot. So she didn't stay. Blanchard was reelected. And she did not stay on. And I don't know if that was his choice or her choice. Probably both mutual. And then she did some wonderful things. She started a group. You're probably going to interview Linda Worthman.
Yeah, she's next.
Yeah,
This afternoon.
Linda could tell you the name because she helped Agnes Mary found this next organization to help the poor after she left. It's PSRI or something like that, Poverty and Social Reform Institute, I think that was it. And Linda worked very closely with her on that. And under that, they started Leaps and Bounds, which actually was on the Mercy campus.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
That continues today. It was initially Agnes Mary was in director of it, but then at least I think she was. She did the feasibility study for that group.
This just hit me. Are you enjoying your retirement?
I
Was
am.
that an easy decision to make?
Yes, it was actually.
It was. It's hard for me. I'm still here.
Well, it was because I knew I was going to continue volunteering.
Yes.
And I was old enough that the community asks us to work as long as we can for a stipend or for salary because we need that. Of course, we have to pay bills too. But I was already in my late 70s. So I thought someone else could use this salary. And one of our sisters actually needed she was working part-time, but needed full-time. So I think it helped to be able to provide a closer to full-time position for her.
But you're not regretting your decision to retire?
No, not at all.